Hi my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. That's right, we're talking about this once again. 3 times a year since The Last Jedi came out, we have articles cropping up about the Rian Johnson Trilogy, which apparently is still in the pipeline. And every single year it's more or less the same thing. Rian Johnson saying he's too busy to work on Star Wars right now, but that someday soon, he's gonna return to direct a trilogy someday, and that hypothetical someday keeps getting pushed further and further. And so as fans, whenever we read about it, many of us assume it's probably never going to see the light of day. It's just not going to happen. And last week on November 9th marks the 5th anniversary since his trilogy was announced, and there's been no progress in all of that time for a single plot idea, what it's going to be about, let alone any sort of pre-production. But today we have even more, because Rian Johnson added to his comments. In a new interview posted by The Hollywood Reporter this morning, Rian Johnson discusses Glass Onion, and then, as you would expect, the interviewer moves on to ask him about Star Wars. You just wouldn't have a Rian Johnson interview without it. He starts by saying he loves Andor. He says he loves that there's such a variety in what Star Wars is doing right now, or as he calls it, a smorgasbord of genres between the various shows. He not only praised Andor, but also the upcoming Acolytes by Leslie Headland. He finished by saying that he's still in talks with Kathleen Kennedy, and that his goal is to, quote, step back into the Star Wars universe in the years to come. And both his words and those of Kathleen Kennedy in previous interviews suggest the ball is in Rian's court. It's pretty much all down to him whenever he's ready to step back into it. Now in the past, Kathleen Kennedy said that occasionally they bring in Rian into the meetings with the creative team just so he's aware of what's going on and that he's in the know, and from the sounds of it, Lucasfilm really seemed to value him above most creators. In the interview, he also reflects on The Last Jedi, and Rian says he had the time of his life working on it and he's very eager to return. Now what I find really interesting about this entire situation is the contrast between the viewpoint of Lucasfilm and that of the fans, and even then, there is a huge divide in fan opinion. You have fans who hated Episode 8 that don't want him to go near Star Wars ever again, then you have fans who love the movie and want more of him, and then you have those who might not have liked The Last Jedi, but recognise that Rian Johnson outside of Star Wars has been responsible for some excellent movies, and so they don't mind more of him. And on social media over the last few weeks, we've seen a bizarre resurgence of heated debate surrounding The Last Jedi. That's right, it's been 5 whole years and unfortunately we're still in the same place. The anger, the arguing, the vitriol, and it really does prove the divide in this fandom. I don't know if Rian Johnson returning is the best idea. There are so many other amazing creatives, and personally, I'm on the Bryce Dallas Howard train. She's proven her talents time and time again in The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and for me, she's the best suited for a Star Wars trilogy to be given that chance. So I suppose my question to you guys, the question of the day, is 5 years on, has your initial opinion on The Last Jedi, good or bad, changed in that time? And a follow-up, how would you feel about Rian Johnson returning to helm a trilogy, or maybe even just one episode of something like The Mandalorian or The Acolyte? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. And maybe, as I suggested Bryce Dallas Howard, let me know which one director you love the most, and who you believe is deserving of a Star Wars trilogy. And so now guys, let's talk about the Andor series. We're just hours away from episode 11, and yesterday I posted my full episode preview. But today we have some more news, notably the historic announcement for Star Wars TV that Andor is coming to cable. They say select episodes of the show will be featured on cable television for Thanksgiving, ahead of the season finale. As we all know, Andor has been struggling in terms of viewership, but that could all be about to change, and this could be one of the reasons Disney is doing this. And so according to an official press release, the first 2 episodes of the show are going to air on ABC, FX, Freeform and Hulu for the Thanksgiving holiday. And part of this release will coincide with the release of the show's season finale, episode 12 next Wednesday on November the 23rd. So this could definitely do wonders for viewership. The idea behind it is that some of the show is going to be teased, and then it's up to the viewer to decide if they want to come to Disney Plus to watch all of it. Hopefully Andor will get the recognition it deserves, and I believe long term, Andor is going to do really well. It's going to be one of those shows that ages the best, and I think Disney knows this. So I don't think they're too worried, but this crossover is historic. So now guys, we've been talking quite a lot about Tales of the Jedi, and today I want to do a deep dive on one aspect of Count Dooku. I came across a wonderful opinion piece by Collider, and I wanted to give you my thoughts on it. They claim that Tales of the Jedi proved that Count Dooku is the most underutilized Star Wars villain. I definitely agree there, but in their piece, they mention how in the brief time it had, Tales added so much depth and profundity to his story. And so the other day I put this to the test. I rewatched Attack of the Clones straight after Tales, and my perspective on him as a character changed. I think that's why we need more shows like Tales, or in this context, maybe even more Dooku stories in the future. Give us a whole show or movie about Dooku's backstory, but more than anything, I think Tales of the Jedi humanized him in a big way, in ways that neither the prequel trilogy nor the Clone Wars could do. Now, the one example they give of the humanizing factor comes in the form of the Unity tree. This was a really profound scene, especially for animation. Count Dooku's frustrations with the Jedi Order boil over in his last episode of Tales. In this critical scene, Dooku stands alone at the Jedi Temple's Unity tree after hearing that Qui-Gon has been killed, a loss he attributes to the negligence of the Jedi Council, who refused to believe Jin's claims of Darth Maul's appearance on Tatooine. This tree is a rare thing of nature on Coruscant, a planet of concrete and steel, and represents the original purpose of the Jedi: natural and positive force beings being stifled by the structures of modernity. Notably, it seems to be something only highly regarded by Dooku and Qui-Gon at this time. Dooku stands at the tree rather than attending his Padawan's funeral, which really says a lot. Now, some might construe it as being cold and callous, but Dooku's response couldn't be more sincere. He's mourning the loss of his student more than any others around him seem to understand, taking a moment to reflect on how he feels complicit in Qui-Gon's loss. He was part of a structure that failed his Padawan and refuses to remain idle any longer, and the numerous contradictions within his character are finally pushed over the edge, forcing him to turn away from the Jedi Order. The Unity tree is also a nice representation of how Qui-Gon viewed the Force and his overall character. He listened to the natural will of the Force, even if it went against the Council. Something so simple in one basic frame can evoke so many emotions, and it was so good to see just how much Count Dooku respected and loved his Padawan. As I say, when I rewatched episode 2, when Dooku tells Obi-Wan that he wishes Qui-Gon was still there, it adds something wholesome and far less sinister. Despite Dooku's political ideals, he was still a human being at one stage. He always saw what he was doing as the right thing. He always sought the greater good, even if we as the audience saw just how bad the CIS were. I would love to see more Count Dooku in the future, but let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. Did you enjoy Tales of the Jedi, and specifically the Count Dooku episodes? If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you always.
I mean, just as a fan, I think it's a pretty exciting time right now. I think about all the stuff that's being made, about Andor that's out right now. I think about Leslie Headland's making a show, and that's going to be something that none of us can imagine. I feel like there's just a plethora of completely different stuff. It's almost like instead of just getting one thing, we're getting like a smorgasbord. You can kind of choose based on what type of thing that you like. So that's exciting.